Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the latest issue of Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol magazine. Now, as per usual with all these videos, if you like them, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and of course, drop me a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to helping out the channel too. Now, this week we are on issue number 25 of good old Combat Patrol magazine. It is a paint issue, it's nothing super special to write home about. However, you are going to want these paints. These paints are pretty good. So, first off, we have a nice new paintbrush. It is a medium shade brush, so it is slightly rounded at the tip compared to most other brushes. I do like the shade brush. You can use it obviously for other things other than just shades. So if you wanted to use it for things like the base layers and stuff like that, you can. However, obviously, don't allow the paint to go all the way up to the metal part of your brush, because that will ruin your brush over time, and eventually the bristles will be kind of splayed out and you will never get that kind of rounded point back. Obviously, for things like fine detail, this is not the brush to use. Get yourself a nice thin, very small brush. You can get a load of them very cheap. You can buy them from places like ABC Brushes, you can buy them from Wayland Games and stuff like that. You can shop around. You don't have to spend an absolute fortune on them. You can get some cheap from Amazon and it will do all exactly the same trick. But get yourself something decent. So no, don't do Poundland. Poundland brushes aren't always very good. Anywho, the paints. So we get two paints as per usual. First paint, Caribou Crimson. Obviously, being Caribou Crimson, it's a red paint or a pink paint. It's pretty decent. It's pretty versatile. It works very well. So you can go over things like reds with it. It'll work very nicely. You can go over things like Wraithbone with it, and it works even better. So it gives you a nice red shade. So the way shade paints work is they are thin, they are quite watery, and the idea is that the paint sits mostly in the recesses. So things that are like any of your recess areas, it should sit quite nicely in them recesses. Now, I do use shades. Shades are very versatile. I don't use them on every mini. So some minis I use different shades of one colour and go for all that style. However, this is very much worth having, so definitely a good one. So pretty good. I do use this, but I don't go through massive amounts of it. I think I've still got half a pot from sometime last year. The other paint though is Nuln oil. Now Nuln oil is black. It is a watery black paint. This is ultra versatile though. So Nuln oil, you can use it over pretty much every colour and you will get a nice effect with it. So use it over things like metallics, dulls the metallics down, makes them a little bit more worn, a bit more oiled, and with a little bit less sheen to them, which is really good and very worthwhile. If you wanted to use them over things like Wraithbone, you can. It's not going to do any damage to it. Obviously, if with pretty much any shade paint, don't use it over large flat areas because it will make it look horrible and a bit kind of patchy and meh. But it's very good. So you can use it over everything. You can use it over reds and it gives you a kind of darker shadow in between the reds than say like the Caribou Crimson would. You can use it over things like gold, silvers. You can use it over blues. It'll work. It'll do everything you need it to do and give you a nice dark shadow for your effort. So worthwhile. I must admit, I use probably 2 pots of this per year, so it's always worth getting in the magazine. Then we're going to move into this week's magazine. So obviously, it's a paint issue. We're going to talk about paint. So, all to do with technique. So, when you are loading up your brush for painting any shades, obviously, get a bit on the end. It's not going to dollop on there like a normal paint. It will try to soak through, so try to just use the tip of the brush as much as you can, and make sure you're rinsing the brush thoroughly after use with clean water, because it will save you a lot of effort and damaging your brush. Use it on everything. So yeah, you're going to have really good fun with it. If you are using any kind of like photo paper or a wet palette, or you're using the palette pad that you can get from GW or anything like that. Just smooth it out, just roll your brush out to get that tip back as much as you can, and away you go. Have a bit of fun. It works very, very nicely. Applying it, you just apply it with it like you would a paint. So just allow the paint to come off it and it'll work. And obviously be aware, because it's runny and it's more watery than every other paint, there is a chance of it kind of having a bleed effect. So if you allow it to, and allow it to pool up too much, it will spread and it will go into areas where you might not want it. So just be aware of that. But otherwise, really, really good. When you go through, obviously you can go over everything. So allow it to fully dry, because it shouldn't take too long because it's quite watery, and it should dry up in a nice temperatured room anyway. You can use it in different ways. So you can go all over shade, or you can go recess shading. So there are two different ways of doing it. So have a bit of fun, have a bit of a play. Don't worry if you go wrong on certain things. It's very easily done. The more you do it, the better technique you get. Anywho, the how to paint section itself, all about Carroburg Crimson and Nuln Oil. So with your Nuln Oil, going over things like the blue areas and your Space Marines and into them recesses and such like that, and over things like the swords and the bolters and such like, works wonders. You can go over with browns and it darkens leather, and it has a nice good effect over things like your leather colours. Yeah, very, very versatile, works wonders. Going over things like the bases as well, so if you're doing it over things like your Tyranids and such like that, you can do. So you can go over things like the Carapace with the Nuln Oil, then go over Carroburg Crimson over the Wraithbone areas, and it will have a nice kind of pinky effect. If you don't like it being that kind of pinky over the flatter areas of Wraithbone, you can water your Carroburg Crimson down if you really, really wanted to, and it will still have a very, very nice look to it. If you do water it down, obviously just be aware that how much water you're using per part of paint, because it can be a bit of a calculation. If you do it too thin, it won't sit in the right places. If you do it too thick, it won't have the effect, might not have the effect that you want. So just be aware of it and how it will work. Play around with it. If you can get any of the free models from your local GW store, in all honesty, they can be really, really good for using to test paints on. So yeah, it's always a bit of food for thought for you. Or just buy some cheap 3D printed ones. Anyway, very, very good. Once you're done, your work in progress, if you're following the magazine, it's going to look something like these. It's a pretty decent paint scheme. It works very, very nice. It will work very, very well. So have a bit of fun with it, enjoy yourself, and I'm sure you're going to do great. Moving on to our read section for good old the Aeldari, all about Saim-Hann. I might not have said that right. It is what it is. So Saim-Hann is an ancient craft world and is populated by some of the fiercest Aeldari warriors in the galaxy. Their bravery is legendary and they are honourable people. But their warlike tendencies have often led them into conflicts that might have been best avoided, and even into conflicts with other Aeldari craft worlds. According to legend, Saim-Hann was one of the first craft worlds to separate from the Aeldari Empire, and it has retained many time-honoured customs from the time before the fall. They take great deal of pride in their ancient traditions, and they value honour above all else. One of their many customs is to have their younger warriors race against their elders to win the right to ride a jet bike, because jet bikes are cool. So, pretty cool stuff. A bit of information about one of the craft worlds. It's the kind of the poster child craft world for good old the Aeldari. Yeah, it is a good paint scheme. It's not really the paint scheme for me. I think I want to go slightly different colour. Although I've not decided, so I've not even... Oh, well, I've built my minis, but I haven't actually decided to paint them yet. One day. Anywho, you get a bit more information about the ancient culture and the Wild Rider clans. Now, we're going to get some Wild Riders, which are pretty cool speed bike machines. We get 6 of them in total with this magazine, which is pretty damn cool, and I must admit, I do quite like them. They have a really nice look to them, so it should be good fun. Then we're going to move on. We have more information about the Aeldari. So the Aeldari pantheon. So in ancient times, the Aeldari worshipped a whole pantheon of gods. At the head of the pantheon was Asuryan, the Phoenix King, and the oldest of the gods. Beneath him stood his brother, Cain, and many other gods beside. The Aeldari themselves are said to be descended from Isha, the goddess of the harvest, and Kurnos, the god of the hunt, who had their first Aeldari child, Eldanesh. So, right, there are some names that you are going to recognise there. So, one, Asuryan is recognised from good old Warhammer the Old World, the Asuryan Blade and such like that. And yeah, the elves are commonly known as have legends of Asuryan and such like that. Cain is the god of murder and is partially worshipped by some elves, especially the dark elves. And the good old, obviously, the daughters of Cain in Warhammer the Old Age of Sigmar, really lost the plot then, and such like that. You do also have in good old Warhammer, especially Age of Sigmar, Kurnoth is mentioned, so very similar to obviously Kurnos there, and such like that. So a little bit of good information that has very, very similar links to Warhammer Age of Sigmar and Warhammer the Old World, and all to do with the elves. So, pretty cool. It's pretty good information, and yeah, quite interesting at the same time. So, good stuff there. So, you learn a bit more. So, after the fall, only 2 of the original pantheon of gods survived: Cain, the bloody-handed god, and Kegrak, the laughing god. So, that happened. Cain went into battle against the new god Slaanesh. Slaanesh struck Cain down and smote him into fragments. Vanquished, but not totally destroyed, these fragments of Cain still live on at the hearts of many avatars. So, which is why you get the avatars of Cain and such like that for the Aeldari, which is pretty cool. So, they are really, really good. And a little bit of information against good old Kagarak, who escaped into the webway and hid deep in labyrinthine tunnels, and bides his time plotting his revenge against Chaos Gods who wronged him. And yeah, so he occasionally leaves his sanctuary, apparently disguised among his followers, which are the Harlequins, which are some of the coolest looking Aeldari units out there. But they take a lot of skill to paint because they have that nice checkerboard pattern on their trousers and inside their jackets and such like that. But they are very, very cool. So you get a little bit more information. So you get information about the Phoenix Lords. So the Phoenix Lords are an ancient exarchs who each founded an aspect shrine. The different shrines are focused on one of the separate aspects of the warrior god Cain. So you get some different ones there. So you get like the Death Jester, and I can't remember what that one's called. And then you get a bit more information as well. So pretty cool stuff. And obviously you get Avatar of Cain, which are really, really cool. I do like the Avatars of Cain. They look pretty nifty. Then we're going to move on. We're going to have a bit more rules and all to do with faction abilities for our Tyranids. So they do have synapse. And this is all giving you an example of how to utilise the synapse in your games. Obviously, have a good read through it. If you're going to be a Tyranid player, this is definitely a section for you. You're going to want to look at it. And obviously, their faction abilities as well. So, have a good read through. Enjoy it. Play your tutorials because it does help you to learn everything about it as well. And I'm sure you're going to do absolutely fine. But otherwise, really, really good stuff. So, definitely worth having a good read through, figuring it out and utilising it when you play games later on. Then we're going to move on. So, next week, shockingly, it's only one part, but issue 26 is our Wraith Lord. I'm looking forward to this guy. I do like him. His pose is a bit dull and it needs something else, but it's a really cool mini. Yeah, really good stuff. So I do quite like the big walker unit. It does remind me of Gundam, because, you know, it just has that kind of effect. It's a big walker unit. So yeah, but it's really cool, so decent. Then issue 27, 28 and 29, I believe that's right anyway, as parts 1, 2 and 3 of our Wind Riders. So the Wind Riders are our good old speed bikes, essentially, and we get 6 of them, as I say, in total, and it'll be spread out across 3 issues. But really good stuff. I am looking forward to them. They do look pretty cool, pretty different. Depending on how much detail you want to get in, you may not want to assemble them with a rider on there. You may want to assemble the rider separate and then pop him on once you've painted everything up, depending on how you want to go about doing it. If you want to get things like them straight lines as well, in all honesty, I'm not going to lie to you, get yourself some masking tape. You can get some really low tack masking tape from places like Green Stuff World and other places like that, different thicknesses and different sizes, and you can get yourself a really nice, smooth, clean line then. So definitely worth having a nosy into. Anywho, that is more than enough from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you sometime soon. Bye bye now.